Hey guys, welcome back to Ed's Garage. Today we're going to put some sliders on my 2022 Rivian R1T, and I gotta be honest, I'm not looking forward to it because they weigh a lot. It came in 4 boxes. Check this out. I'm not sure why there's 4 boxes, so I'm going to go ahead and open these up, see what they look like, and then I will show you what the installation procedure looks like as well. Alright, so I weighed the 3 pieces that make up one side, and I got about 120 pounds. So I guess in total, 240 pounds. I'm going to go ahead and figure out how to install these. They actually have a handy QR code on the box right here that you scan for the instructions. So that is what I'm going to do next and see what the plan is. All right, so if you want to get all the tools together, this is what you're going to need. A 10 mil wrench or socket, 13 mil, 15 mil, 17 mil, a 5 mil hex driver, a 4 mil hex driver, so it could be Allen keys or just a hex driver bit, a T20 Torx bit, and the kit apparently is supposed to come with this as well as a TP55. I do not have a TP55 bit, so I sincerely hope I can find said bit because I went through the box and boxes. I have yet to find that, so yeah. Something to drive those with. It also says 12-inch standard screwdrivers. It doesn't say which screwdrivers you need. So I've got this, which is just a bit driver. It's definitely 12 inches, and I just put whatever bit in there that I'm going to require. It also says a 7/16 socket. It says deep socket, well, I think that's what they meant anyway, but I just got a little extension and my 1/2-inch driver. It also recommends 1/2-inch driver for that. But I mean 7/16, so that must be some pretty strong bolts that I'm using. And then also a T30 bit and driver. Now this is a T30 bit. For whatever reason, they kind of put that all separate from the other ones. They suggested with a socket wrench. So not sure exactly what these are all going to be used for just yet. But anyway, the first step is kind of lay everything out and make sure that you're doing putting the right side on the right side. And you have to put one of the traction pad things or tread pads or tread, I don't know what you call that. This bit has to go on one of those bits first. And apparently these are exactly the same. And they can be flipped over and used the other way. So it's got to go on there first. So that's the first step. All right, found this tucked underneath one of the sliders. So presumably have everything we need. Oh yeah, there it is. Okay, so there's our TP55 Torx bit. Big monster. Cool. Alright. I wonder if there's a T30 in here too, like they say there's supposed to be. Okay, I'm going to open that up. All right, judging by how many how many bolts and nuts and washers and clip bolts or whatever these are called, this job is a hell of a lot more complicated than the last set of sliders I installed. That was like 6 bolts per slider and you were done. It was a lot easier than this. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is go ahead and install one of these traction boards onto a slider. So let's get that done. All right, so the top of the slider is this here. So basically, all of these kind of sit like that. The bottom of the truck would basically be right here. Now, it does have little arrows, which I presume face towards the front of the truck. So it looks like I've got the passenger side here. I'm going to go ahead and flop one of these guys on. All right, so these get mounted with the little hex bolts here, hex sort of Allen key style screws or bolts, they almost look like, they're basically machine screws. But anyway, you got to put the machine screw through a washer and then through the tread plate holes. There are 14 on either side. So I'm going to go ahead and get all 14 in, and then I'll snug the bolts first and then go back and tighten them all to about 5 pounds each one. So I'm going to do that with, just the Gutentight method. So yeah, washer on the top of the tread plate with the bolt or machine screw, and then the nut. I call it a serrated nut because it's got a little serration on the bottom here. That's going to stop it from backing itself out. I'm going to go ahead and put all those in. All right, so I've started tightening these down, and what's the nice about this is because you got that serrated nut on the other side, you can actually just kind of hold the nut with your finger and then tighten from the top down. It's pretty simple. So I'm going to quickly demonstrate here if I can. I'm going to go ahead and use an impact driver. Unfortunately, my mic and my tripod are at work, so so I cannot. I need 3 hands to do this. But you'll get the idea. Basically, as soon as you start to tighten down one of the screws, as long as you're holding the nut from moving, it will not move, and you can tighten this down pretty easily. You can either use a bit driver, okay? And in this case, I'm using my impact driver. This will do 50 pounds though, so I need to be a little bit careful. I'm just going to let it click a couple times, and that'll be more than enough to tighten them. All right, so the next step is to take 3 plastic covers off of both sides of the truck. So I am right behind the front passenger wheel here, and you can see this is held in by the 7/16 bolt. Well, 2 7/16 bolts, and then 2 screws. Those look like probably the T30s that I'm going to need for that. So I'm going to grab those. But yeah, you'll notice there's a second panel here, and it looks like it's held in underneath that first panel. And then it goes all the way back. It's also underneath the last panel, which has, looks like 2 bolts as well. Look here. Well, maybe not. There's a little cover there that might need to pop off. And then there's a couple of screws at the far back that might need to come out, but maybe not. So I'm going to start by taking off these the bolts. Apparently I only need to take the bolts out, but clearly there's 2 screws going through there, so pretty sure those have to come out as well. But I'm going to start with the bolts, and we'll go from there. What on earth is this? That's a piece of wood. All right, that's what happens when you go off-roading with these. Oh, correction, these are the 10 mil, and it required the 10 mil socket. I think I mentioned earlier that you needed a 10 mil wrench. No, you need a 10 mil socket for these, so just keep that in mind. All right, so these caps are actually the jack mounting points, and I believe the sliders actually bolt in here as well. But yeah, check this out. Gross. So that's what happens when you get stuck in the mud. Lovely. All right, first plastic panel removed, and I just want to point out that they kind of missed the mark with the instructions here, because they said that they simply unbolt and pull off. They forgot to mention that they also unscrew. So these are not bolts, these are screws. They're towards the front of the panel. It's fairly obvious, as I pointed out earlier, that those are going to need to come out, and sure enough, they did. Now, you can see just the amount of mud here is pretty crazy. Check this out. Yeah, not related. The other thing to point out is these 2 clips towards the back. So they're right here. So just to give you an idea where we are, here's the front tire, and about 2 feet back. These clips are pretty tight. You can see this one actually just kind of ripped the plastic. This one, the metal is still there. So the metal for this side is still, yeah, it's still in there. It's right here. So I can go ahead and pull that out now with a pair of pliers, because obviously it's not going to need to be there anymore. So yeah, they weren't very descriptive on how to take this out, but I ended up using a pry bar to get underneath there and actually pry it off, because it was really, really tight. So keep that in mind. That's probably another tool to add to the kit of things you're going to need. You could open the door. It didn't really help too much prying it off, but a little tiny bit. So that might help you if you need to. All right, I'm going to go ahead and take the next panel off. All right, so the next panel to take off is the rear one. And yeah, you can leave those screws in. They don't need to come out. I, again, needed to pry this off. So first I started by prying here, and then I kind of went around the side through this hole and pried the second pin out. There's, again, 2 of them, as you can see. And then the back looks like it's just kind of held in by clips. So at this point, I should just be able to yank this off now. Looks like it's going into, let's see, the battery side. Yeah, I think I just have to pull it. Yeah, this might be a two-handed thing. Or it's in there with clips again. That's a possibility as well. Let's just have a look here. I can't quite see. Oh, okay. It's held on by adhesive tape. These trucks are taped together. Okay. Adhesive tape, eh? Interesting. All right. There you go. There's literally just adhesive tape all along here and all along here. Wow. Well, whatever. You can see the underbody shield there. That's already had a bit of work done to it. So I'm glad I got it with the shield. Okay, so now the last one. Again, probably clipped in. Oh, see that? I just broke it right there. See that? Good thing it doesn't need to be reused. Alright, this one is coming off a little different here. Jeez Louise. Once again, the clip just ripped out. See that? Jeez. Okay, so this one you can see right there that it's got tabs that go into the underbody shield. So this one really does need to be unclipped, and it looks like it's going to need to be unclipped kind of the whole way down. So you got to be careful. I mean, you don't want to necessarily damage this bit underneath, because that's your door, right? See that? Yeah. Okay, I'm going to need two hands for this. Basically, yeah, this is going to be held in by clips all the way down. They need to be popped out so that I can slide out this way. Okay, as you can see, I have all the plastic panels removed. Now, if you want, you can clean this stuff up. I am going to be removing this clip rail. This is where all those clips went into. Apparently, it's not necessary to have that on there at all anymore, which I guess makes sense. And that is where the T30 comes in. So apparently you don't have to remove it if you don't want to. I'm going to remove it because, quite frankly, these sliders are going to stay on for the rest of this truck's life. So, yeah. Now, I did want to point out one thing I noticed here. I would call it a bit of a flaw in the old Rivian design. Check this out. So the rocker panel seal is completely loose on the bottom end. There's nothing attaching it. It looks like they kind of squished this over. Yeah, I mean, even I guess the plastic cover kind of goes up into it, but I mean, that's unfortunate. It's held on along the top edge, so I'm not worried about it. And I imagine the steel plate that goes here for the slider will probably tuck into that anyway. But yeah, that's kind of weird. We'll see how it works. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and take off these. You know what? I've changed my mind. I'm going to leave these on for one reason and one reason only. Future proofing here, because whenever you take one of these screws out, one of these machine screws, the inside of that hole is going to be basically scraped away. Any powder coating or paint that's inside that hole will be worn away from that screw. And there's also a possibility that underneath these metal bits here, that paint will have been damaged as well. So I don't want this starting to rust. So I'm going to go ahead and leave those in. Apparently it's optional whether or not you want to take them out. Now, I can go by and start pulling all of these guys out, though. I might do that. I might just leave it, though. But otherwise, these don't have to come out. The steel plates will go right over top, and it's optional to do that if you want. So that is the only place where a T30 is necessary. All right, the next thing we're going to do is start removing some of these frame bolts. Now, I say some because you don't want to remove them all, okay? So the first two towards the front, keep in mind that is the front passenger tire right now. These two stay. They do not come out, okay? So we're going to take out this one, number 3. There's 10 of them in total. Number 4. Number 5, we're going to leave in partially. So this needs to be backed out. Now you can see it does actually have a mark here. I wonder why that is. And then all the other ones, so 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. All of those need to come out. Number 5 is going to stay, but we are going to back it out. So leaving the first 2, taking the rest except for number 5 out. Here we go. Ooh, those are in there. All right, so that's number 3. It's the first one I've done, but it's number 3. Number 4. Oh dear. All right, number 5, I'm gonna get it started. Yeah, about there. Okay. Number 6. Come on. All right, I gotta put my camera down here. All right, so I've left the first 2 bolts near the front tire there in completely. I've got this one completely backed out with the exception of like a couple of full turns, and I've got all the other ones removed. These back 2 were really, really tight. My impact driver was not able to get them out, the impact wrench, so I had to use a breaker bar. So I guess that's why they wanted to have a 7/16 socket, 1/2-inch socket, because that's what this thing fits into. And then I added an extension in order to get those out. But yeah, they came out. So now, next part, I believe, is I think I got to take 2 bolts out near the front there still. So let's have a look. I just realized I own impact sockets, so don't judge me. I should have used an impact socket. Oh, look, mud. Okay, so this this bolt here needs to be backed out, and that's basically it. So that, again, is the front passenger tire. So right basically across from the number 2 body mount bolt, this one here just needs to be backed off. That's going to be the other place that the under plate is going to hang on to make it easier to access, or easier to hang up and start bolting in, I guess. Okay, next step from the front passenger tire is to look back to this first sort of triangular bracket. There's 2, okay? If I go a little further back towards the back of the truck, there's the other one there. So this bracket needs to come out completely, and these bolts will be used again. So we're going to go ahead and pull those out first. And that is, oh, nope, those are a 17 mil. So that's where we need our 17 mil wrench or socket. All right, so these are going to be used to hang the slider on again. So we're going to put those in a couple turns. All right, next step is to remove the other triangle bracket. So I guess it doesn't really matter which one you do first, but yeah, we're going to go ahead and do the same thing. And exactly the same procedure, put those back in a couple turns. All right, now looking at the rear tire, right in front of the rear tire, there's one more plastic panel right here. Yep, that is plastic. There's 2 13 mil bolts, this one and this one. This one needs to come out, but not all the way. This is the last bolt that the slider is going to hang on as we go ahead and put the slider up. So same procedure. Make sure it's only in a couple turns, makes it a little easier to hang that slider in. Okay, so now for the hard part. So this now weighs somewhere around 70 pounds or so, 60 or 70 pounds. And we basically got to get it up. You'll notice right here, there is a slot. This slot goes into that large bolt, larger frame bolt that is still sticking out a little bit. So it's basically going to slot in like that. That, along with all of the other bolts on these brackets that we left in place, those are going to hold it in place while we kind of get it ready. Now, a couple ways you can do this. You can use jack stands underneath. You can maybe use if you got a shop chair, slide it around. I've already got all this cardboard here, so I'm not going to bother. I'm just going to muscle this into place and hope for the best. All right, so here goes nothing. Get it lined up. Honestly, this might have been easier with fewer bolts. There's too many bolts in here. It's way too hard to get things lined up. All right, so I'm going to reduce the amount of bolts we have that are holding this thing up. Quite frankly, this is excessive. Yeah, I'm going to go with 3. Be a lot easier now. Jeez. All right. Now I'm going to go ahead and just thread in those other ones that I took out a little bit. All right, so I took out this one on the end. I took one of these 2 out. So now I'm just having a little trouble getting that threaded in properly. So be careful not to cross thread, obviously. This one's still in place, of course, the big one. I took both of these ones out, and then I have one near the front there. So quite frankly, yeah, I mean, I understand for liability purposes, they don't want people just, you know, willy-nilly having this 70-pound weight resting on just a few bolts. But, God, that was way easier. All right. Okay, so I'm going to get all these bolts in place and on to the next step. All right, once you feel you got it pretty much safely in place, then it's time to go ahead and start threading in these frame bolts just by hand. At least that way, you know, the slider can move around a little bit and not fall off and crush you. So I'm going to get a couple of these into place, thread it up, but not tighten just yet. So that way it's not going to fall off. So start adding them all back in. And if they start threading in nicely, that's good. If they seem to encounter some resistance, that's bad. So far, so good though. All right, once you have tightened all of the bolts by hand, including these guys here, the 17 mils and the TP55 Torx bit, as well as the 15 mil in the front and the 13 mil in the back, of course you can start tightening them down properly. So the TP55 bolts, those need to go to 80 foot-pounds, so you're going to want to do those first. Use your torque wrench. So that's another thing I forgot to point out that you need. The instructions didn't mention it, but you do need it. So torque them down to 80. I went to 82 just to be on the safe side. Don't want to over torque, of course, but a couple pounds, not a big deal. These ones here, the 17 mil, they are torqued to 45 pounds. So once you've got all your 80-pound TP55 ones done, there's 8 of them, so make sure you count 8 as you do it. There are 4 17 mils, so set your torque wrench to 17,
set your torque wrench to 45. Check it on one of the 80-pound bolts. Just make sure it's actually clicking. Make sure it's working properly at the lower torque spec. And then, lastly, do your 15 mil and your 13 mil on the end over here at 25 pounds. And again, set your torque wrench to 25 pounds and do it on one of the last ones of these. You got 4 of these 17 mil. So there's 2 here and then 2 here where you took off those triangle brackets. And then check your torque wrench. Make sure it clicks at 25 pounds before proceeding with the last 2 bolts. All right, now the next step is to put the little clips in these guys here. So I'm going to show you where to do that and which ones we're talking about. All right, so the next step is to put in 7 of these barrel nut clips. Starting at the front, right by the arrow, 1 there, 1 right here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and the last one here, 8. So to put these on, just kind of go line it up. Takes a bit of effort. Come on. There we go. And it kind of makes a nice satisfying click once it's in place. All right, so now we can put the armor plate on. And that is a little weird because they don't actually tell you which direction it goes. So I'm going to show you. Also, there's 8 holes here to put bolts in. There's 8 bolts in total, yet there are 10 holes in the armor plate. So let me show you how those go on. Armor plate is meant to cover all of this up. Okay, it doesn't stick out past this. It actually just kind of comes to the edge of this. The other holes, of course, here. This is not the end of the armor plate. The armor plate has to go all the way to the edge of the battery pack. But notice that if we follow the edge of the battery pack towards the front of the vehicle, this shield kind of cuts out around like this. So remember this little round bit right here. That lines up with this round cutout here. So this is the front of the vehicle. The edge, the lip needs to go up. All right, so this basically goes to the front. And if you're wondering which side is which, just remember that this edge is going to run along the running board. Okay, so this is the inboard part. This is the outboard part. So this would be the passenger side. All right, so if you follow the instructions, it tells you to lift this entire piece up first, place it in place, and then start with like the middle bolt. What I just did was I lifted up one end, put in 1 bolt. Now I'm going to just lift up the other end and put in 1 bolt. And then I'm going to start putting in all of the bolts. I also noticed that right here, there's a little P for passenger. That should help you figure that out. Now you can see there's that rounded piece of metal from the existing shield and the rounded cutout that will line up with it once it's put up. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and put in the backup. Put the back up and put a bolt in. All right, so I've got all 8 bolts in place, as you can see, and they're all tightened to 15 pounds. Now, these are 12 mil. I didn't say anything about needing a 12 mil at the beginning because the instructions did not mention that. But yeah, 12 mil required here. As you can see, we've got great coverage all the way to the edge of the battery pack. When you put this in place and you've got it held on by a few bolts, before you tighten the bolts, push this all the way towards the battery. So right here, you'll notice there's a tiny bit of gap between this and the slider. You can slide this back if you want to cover this up, but I felt it more important to protect the battery pack, the edge of the battery pack specifically, so I jammed this all the way that way. All right, and here's what the finished product looks like installed. Looks fantastic, fits really, really nicely. The only thing that I would suggest that they do for future products is actually taper the front and rear of the slider. What I mean is right in this spot here. So this, if it were tapered, like if it were on an angle, or chamfered, whatever you want to call it, this would actually have less problems. If you were to get hung up on a rock or something right here, you're going to get that rock stuck right up in there. So that is one place that I think they could definitely improve it. As a matter of fact, this could just be a bit longer. You can see this is now no longer connected to anything, and there is a gap here. So I do have a bit of a problem with that. I'm not pleased with where that stops. Let's have a look at the back. And you can see, same basic problem. All they needed to do was make it a few inches longer and have that kind of chamfered off a little bit so that your rock that you're on can ride up onto the rail and off of the rail. But in the grand scheme of things, the chances of that happening are pretty slim.
And that is pretty much it. So the rock slider is installed. The procedure on the other side is exactly the same. So just watch this video twice. Guys, if you are looking for rock sliders for your Rivian R1T or R1S, do I recommend these? Well, I have to recommend these, and the reason for that is because they are significantly less expensive than alternatives from other companies by a pretty wide margin. And despite the minor shortcomings there of them being a few inches shorter than they could be and not being chamfered, you know, for the price, I think these are a pretty awesome product. They're extremely heavy duty. There's, you know, the 1/4 inch or 3/16 inch steel all around, powder coated. They look fantastic, and they can act like running boards as well. So if you're getting in and out of the vehicle, if you're a bit shorter, there is a lot of real estate there to step on. I'm going to use the back so I got a really tight garage with this camper trailer in here. But yeah, so if I need to get in, as you can see, I can step on. You can see my crazy, weird looking shoes. But yeah, I've got a lot of room with which to step on. You know, they're easily as wide as my shoe, and this is a really wide shoe. So they stick out a good, I'd say a good 5.5, 6 inches. So it's going to make it really easy. Now, these are so strong that you can actually jack the vehicle up right off the running board. So whether you put it on the end here with a high lift or get right underneath the plate, it's capable of supporting the weight of the vehicle, and that's pretty awesome. So, good product. Again, I want to apologize for not having a mic with me. I know that the audio in this video wasn't spectacular, but hopefully this video helped you out a little bit, gave you some insight as to whether or not you want to get yourself a set of these rock sliders from EVSPORTLINE. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to leave a comment below. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, have a great day.